Okay, I will skip the pleasantries and get right into it. We're going to create a Rails 6 app and mock up some data using mockaroo. Just a simple make, model, and year data for a factory ID that we'll make up for a set of cars. Uh, I'll show you how to quickly create some model data using that CSV that we generate from mockaroo. And then I'll show you how to print a new CSV with just the Japanese car models. Something real simple, takes you through some high-level concepts, and we'll show you how easy and fun it could be um, to spin up something new and get going with some mock data so it can kickstart your development for really anything, because mockaroo is so flexible. So we're just going to use this blog actually as our guide. So the resource links are right here for you to peruse, and they will also be available in the video description. Cruise over to my blog and check it out one way or another. It's a pretty decent resource. I also have, while I'm here, I might as well mention it, a gist that I've blogged on the same dev2 uh, account that you can find that takes you through the entire process of creating a new Rails 6 app with Postgres and deploying it to Heroku. Um, it is packed full of basically everything you need to get up and running and deployed just about as quickly as you can enter the commands, avoiding some of the pitfalls, getting you started correctly with Postgres, getting Heroku going. So basically a trimmed down version of this is what I'll be using in this blog, but this is always here, and I've had positive feedback on it. So I hope you enjoy it as well. So getting back here, the first thing we're going to do is spin up a new Rails 6 app. Make sure you have Rails and Ruby installed. Um, that is also covered in my gist, but going to just the root directory of my local machine, and we will get it going. While that happens, let's look at what's next. We're going to bundle afterwards. We're going to scaffold a car model. That's going to make a lot of extra files that we don't need for, but it's good to get in the practice of scaffolding things out. In my opinion, some people have strong opinions about not scaffolding things, but for me, it's nice to have a test suite and all the controllers and views and everything else ready for you to use, so you don't have to bother with creating them in the future. So in my opinion, it saves time. I'm gonna run bundle just to make sure. Well, before I run bundle, I should probably cd into the app, and then I'll run bundle. That looks good. So what did I say after that? After that, we're going to say, generate this nice scaffold of a car. Oh, and I'll mention before I do this, we're gonna have a make, a model year, that'll be an integer, and a factory ID that we're going to create in mockaroo as well. All of this is going to be created in mockaroo, and I'll take you through that in a moment. But since we're on a roll in the terminal, we might as well get through generating our car model and all the tasty things. And as soon as I can highlight it correctly, we'll get back to the terminal, and we'll see if my terminal actually behaves, because I've noticed something with my Rails generate. No, we're okay. So that's all good. We can see all the different files that have been created, or migrate file, our car.rb, and our models, are all of our views, our controllers, our cars controller, our JBuilder files, so style sheets, etc. So a lot of things, really all we're going to be using is our model and our controller for the create method, and that is all, as well as the CSV class for Ruby. So now that we have that scaffolded, we're going to set up our DB and ignore all of my ugly warnings. I should take care of that, or just switch to iTerm. And now we migrate. And I think there's a command to do both of these in one fell swoop, but I don't remember it. Alas, I did not make a guide. So now that everything is migrated, I think, well, let's go into the Rails console and just see what happens. And this is where my terminal, if it takes too long, I'll get into the story of what happened when I upgraded to Z Shell before Mac instituted it as its default shell language. Well, I'll give it about 10 more seconds since sometimes these things. So we'll do a little live experiment here on how this behaves compared to my car app is what it's called. And I wonder if there's anything even running Ruby-wise. What's happening? So this is a fun live debug session that you're doing with me. And see, even my control C isn't working. So I kind of predicted this, but this might turn into a don't panic moment because I've been dealing with this. So one way we can deal with this, and if control C and control D don't work, I might just have to give up on this terminal. And I am going to force quit all my lovely Ruby processes one by one. This might turn into a Y Rails Y video. Nope. Okay, so we're fine. I'm convinced this is a local thing, not Rails' fault. Let's try getting into the console from iTerm instead of the default terminal. Let's see how far we get. There we go. See, and what will happen is I'll go back and forth from time to time. It's some config cross up that's happening, but alas, we are. So let's take account of the cars. And we don't have any cars, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. So yes, we have 0 cars as expected. Let's create just a blank car. And the reason that we can even run this method is because when we scaffolded, oh, I have not opened my app in the editor. I apologize. Well, let's do that. And could I have done that in the terminal? Yes, I could have. The reason we can do that is in our app controllers directory in our cars controller, we have a create method defined. And that is my favorite reason to use the scaffold. If I were to just generate a model, I wouldn't have this controller. And if I were just to generate a controller, well, what do I do with that model? So scaffolding. Anyway, we can see car will run car.new with whatever params are passed. And our errors and success messages. So all that being said, let's create a car. And it turns out this car is quite bland, and we're not doing any validation on actually passing in real values to any of this. So we have very nil car, which could be a collectible if you're really into redundant names. So to get around having to build out a ton of cars from scratch, we're going to hop over to Mockaroo, and they are at mockaroo.com. And what we want, and I have a guide that I'll actually copy here too, I've left a screenshot, is the make, the model year, and the factory ID, just like we did in the Rails generate scaffold command that created those columns for us. So we'll just remember these: car make, model, car model year, and a GUID that I think stands for like general universal ID, something like that, for they're in Mockaroo's world. So I'll just clear all these out and start afresh. And I already forgot, what did I call the first one? Make. And that's easy. We know that it's a car make. Mockaroo is so fun. I'm doing a free plug for them here, but unless they're doing something terrible to a group of people or even one person that I'm not aware of, I completely back them. So we'll do a model year here, and we'll do the car model year, and it'll fill in all this data correctly. So your car make will refer to the correct car model. It'll be Toyota Corollas, Corollas, not Nissan Corollas, and so forth. So our last field is factory ID. And I had to search a little bit for what would work for this when I did this on a dry run, but they have this hexadecimal, I guess, global ID or general UID, so that's good to you. You can go ahead and download the data and save. I'm going to say mock car, let's say mock model data, and it'll save it as a CSV for me. So I'm going to move that file that's in my downloads directory, and I'm going to go ahead and move it the cheating way. Where did it go? Interesting. I guess we can look again at what directory. Oh, it put it in my home directory. Well, isn't that nice? Okay, so I guess we'll do it here. So we'll find that is mock model data, and I want to put it in. So I'm going to mv the mock model data, and I want to put it in my, let's put it in the temp directory of my app. So I will put it in my car app. We'll go app. Is it in temp here? No, it's just in temp here. And that's good enough for me. And we'll say go ahead. So now that that is there, we need to create a file named create cars, and we're going to stick it in our app's home directory. And we can go ahead and do this. Actually, let's go ahead and do it in the terminal. So let's go back to my car app and touch create cars.rb, and we'll see it show up here. And of course, we typoed it, but I'm going to cheat and rename it right here, and it's create cars with a C. So up here, we can just follow this template actually. And so we have our car mock data that we put in our temp file. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy this right out and plop it in. So I'm going to require the CSV class. I believe it's actually already bundled in with Rails, but just to make sure. And you can do this same exact thing outside of Rails. I just included Rails to show you how easy it is to create a model, but you can manipulate a CSV with the CSV gem that may or may not come baked in with Ruby itself, but if you don't, you can just require, if it doesn't, then you can just require it up top and manipulate it. So we're going through this, and I've included the Ruby CSV class docs here. And really, it's so easy to follow. Basically, you start with the CSV, you call chain for each to it, and you give it the path of your source data and create rows. So for each row within the source data, it's going to assign row as a variable. And we know that we created 4 indexes in each row for the make, model, year. And check it out, we included headers. And I bet we included headers in our source file too. And so what we're going to do is what would be the best thing? I guess the first thing we're going to do is, there's our mock model data. I guess what we could do really is just delete them. And that's what we're going to do. This is a nice extension for VS Code that colorizes your CSVs. I recommend it. So going back to create cars, for each, actually we should probably open that up again. So we have 4 indexes in each row. When you pass each row in, it's going to be collected as an array. So you can reference the index. So I'm going to create the car with its make, model, model year, and factory ID that's coming straight from our CSV. And so you can imagine if you had a CSV with 100,000 rows or more, how it would be useful and rather quick to do it with Ruby. And I see an indentation issue. Do you see an indentation issue? I see it. So now that we have this set and ready to go, we can head over to our terminal, and we're going to run Rails R for Rails run, and our file name is create cars, and it's in the root directory, so it picks it up right there. And we're going to cross our fingers and go. And we have an error. No such file or directory, car mock data. Aha, because I did not change the name of the file, and our file is called mock model data. That should work. Now this should work. So let's try it again. And we did not print anything to the console to let us know we're okay, but what's the command to reload Rails? There we go. So car.count should be 1001 now, and here we are. So if I went to car.first, and we could go pp car.first, it is our nil car, and we see that it's boring. But if, let's say, we went to car.last, we have an Audi A8 from 2003, a wonderful year for the A8. So now we have all sorts of data that we can play with. We can say car.where model is Audi .count, and well, there are no models named Audi because Audi is a make, and we see we have 24. So now we have a test database that we can run all sorts of fun things with, and really you can condense this into a few minutes and be ready to go with whatever type of data and whatever idea you have. So now let's do something less complicated even, and let's find all of the Japanese cars that are in our new database. So we're going to create a new file in the home directory again called japanesecars.rb. So I'll just head over to my term, and I'm in my home directory. So we'll say touch Japanese cars. Should be good to go. And I've already done us the favor of isolating the Japanese makes into an array, and we have our path, which should be correct. I apologize. This path is going to be the output path of our Japanese car data, and this loop is the real meat and potatoes of it. First, you're going to open the CSV, the new CSV. Name of it is going to be our path. WB gives you write privileges, and we create our CSV object. Each input into this object is going to create a data row. So now we begin our loop over our cars where the make is any of the matches for our Japanese car make array indexes. Find each and do car. You could just run .each here, but find each when you're dealing with a very large data set is much more efficient. That's when you're dealing with billions of data rows, let's say, but even when I can, I use find each just to be efficient. So we're going to use the begin rescue end here just to be safe, though we probably don't need it. But the first row is going to be our headers, so that's very simple. We just pass in the strings for our headers. This is wrong. The header should be up top. We're going to edit our blog in real time. I might just put this up. I'm going to keep recording because I might just put this up. And so the headers here, ladies and gentlemen, need to be before our loop, or we're going to write our headers every time we we're going to write our headers every time we loop through our data, and that would be wrong. So I believe this will be correct now. So let's go over to japanesecars.rb, and we'll plop that in, and let's see if this works. Now we're in untested territory, ladies and gentlemen. Now we are, I don't know what I changed in the controller, but I'm going to undo that and get out of here before anything else happens. So we have our create Japanese cars. Let's take a look and see what happens. We might have to debug another error. So we're going to say Rails R Japanese cars, and we should see a new file come up in our temp directory that's called nope. And do you know why? Who knows why? Who can tell me why, folks? I'll tell you why. Because we're missing all the important stuff up here. Script can't run with no information. Let's try it one more time. Heyo. And now we have our Japanese cars CSV not our development secrets. Voila. And now you may disperse this data as you will. Hit like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed our debugging adventures. This is actually something that I use almost daily. So I hope that you find some use out of it as well. Farewell, my friends.